Hi home cooks, today I'm in the kitchen making a biscuit top ground beef pot pie.
This hearty ground beef recipe is warm, filling, and incredibly easy to make from scratch. I love making this recipe to stock my freezer for easy and wholesome postpartum meals. My family loves it and I love not having to think about what's for dinner.
This casserole is freezer friendly, packed with seasoned ground beef, tender veggies, and rich homemade flavor, all underneath a golden flaky biscuit crust. Not only is this meal family approved, it's budget friendly and perfect for stocking your freezer.
So let's get into the kitchen. This is how I make a freezer friendly ground beef biscuit top pot pie.
To start this recipe, you're going to preheat a large pan or Dutch oven to medium heat. I'm going to add in a few tablespoons of oil and then fry half a diced onion until it's softened and just starting to color. Add in 2 cups of sliced mushrooms. Fry this along with the onions. Then I'm going to add in 2 cloves of minced garlic. Now you can make this recipe with either fresh or frozen vegetables. If you're using fresh vegetables with a longer cooking time like carrots or potatoes, dice them and add them in now. Then I'm going to add in 1 pound of ground beef. Stir and break up the chunks of ground beef as it cooks. I'm just going to continue to fry this and cook it along with the vegetables until there's no pink left. And now if you're using frozen or partially cooked vegetables, we're going to add those in now. I'm adding in a cup of frozen peas and about 3/4 of a cup of frozen corn kernels. And now to make that thick pot pie gravy, over top of my beef and vegetable mixture, I'm going to sprinkle in 1/3 of a cup of all-purpose flour. I'm just stirring this into the beef and vegetable mixture until it's coated and the flour is absorbed. Now I can mix in 3 cups of beef broth. I'm going to stir this until it starts to simmer and thicken, which takes about 5 minutes. Finally, I'm going to stir in 1/4 cup of cream. This is going to make the pot pie filling extra rich and creamy. Finally, adjust the salt and pepper to your taste. Now, if you've made this in an oven-proof pan like a cast iron skillet, you can assemble this whole casserole right inside. If not, transfer the pot pie filling into a casserole dish. And since I'm going to be making mine for the freezer, I'm going to be transferring my mixture into an aluminum pan. And now that the filling is made, it's time to move on to the biscuits.
The first thing I'm going to do is prepare the butter. And you can do this whole thing by hand in a bowl, but I'm going to be grating my butter. And then to make everything super quick and easy, I'm going to make everything in the bowl of my stand mixer.
In the large bowl, I'm going to add 4 cups of all-purpose flour. Add in a tablespoon of baking powder, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 2 teaspoons of salt. I'm going to add in 1 cup of cold butter, either grated or cut into little cubes. And since I'm using a stand mixer, gently mix the grated butter and flour until I have a dry, crumbly mixture. If you're doing this by hand, rub the butter into the flour with your fingertips. And to bring it all together, I'm going to mix in 1 1/4 cups of milk. I'm just going to gently mix this until the dough just comes together. Then I'm going to tip the dough out onto a lightly floured counter. Fold the dough a few times just to bring it together. Gently with my rolling pin, I'm going to press the dough out into a disc about 1 inch thick. And to form these little rustic biscuits, you can use a biscuit cutter, a large circular cookie cutter, or an upturned cup like I'm doing here. And now we're ready to assemble the casserole. If you're baking your casserole right away, go ahead and arrange these right on top of the pot pie filling. However, if you're prepping this for the freezer like I'm doing here, I'm going to place them onto a cookie sheet and flash freeze them. And to assemble the casserole for the freezer, I have my filling placed in my freezer safe and oven safe container. I'm going to place a layer of plastic wrap right on top of the filling. On top of the plastic wrap, I'm going to arrange my frozen biscuits. Then cover with plastic wrap and finally cover with a layer of aluminum foil. And right before going into the freezer, I'm going to make sure to label this with the date and cooking instructions. And my casserole can go into the freezer for up to 3 months. If you're baking it right away, Brush the top of each biscuit with an egg wash. And then it's ready to get popped into my 425 degrees Fahrenheit or 220 degrees Celsius oven. And it's going to bake for 15 minutes, or until the biscuits are toasty and golden brown on top. This ground beef casserole is warm, filling, and incredibly easy to make from scratch.
And as always, you can find a link to the full written recipe in the description box below.
Enjoy! If you're a fan of deliciously simple vintage recipes and old-fashioned skills, then you'll want to check out this next video. Thanks for stopping by.